Buenos dias from Cabo San Lucas. I am privileged to be speaking with Marco Pfeiffer, who is a real estate investor from the United States. He's able to build financial freedom with his rental properties in the U.S. To the point where he's coming down to Baja, been here for about a month, kind of scoping out real estate. Good friend of mine. Anyway, Marco, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Fletcher, man. Great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you about real estate and Cabo in particular. So yeah, really looking forward to this one.
Cool. And just to give people a little background, you have been able to create financial freedom through rental properties in the U.S., correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I started back in 2016. At the time, I had a corporate career as a in finance. I was a CFO, and started building cash flow, one property at a time. I invested in multifamily at one point as well. Bought some apartment buildings, and in 2020, I was able to retire from my corporate job at the age of 45, and now just do real estate, but in a more how can I say, more relaxed way. It's not that I work from 8 to 5 in real estate, but having over 40 rental properties allowed me now to live a life by design. And I decided to drive down from Florida all the way down here to Cabo. Did a little road trip with my dogs, and I'm here for months now. Yeah, so really enjoy my freedom and enjoy the opportunity that real estate gave me.
Yeah, and before we get into Cabo, one of the things I like about your style is it seems like a lot of people will get like maybe 2 or 3 rental properties and they're kind of maxed out. They either don't have the means to go further or they just don't know how to scale it. You've been able to go much further past that, kind of
Yeah.
dispelling that myth that with single family rentals you cannot scale up to a point where that you've gotten to where you do have financial freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's this urban legend out there, especially if you talk to people in multifamily, that you cannot scale up in single family. I just disagree and found a way to do that. And I agree, there's a lot of people who have like 2, 3 houses and they just don't have the funds to buy the next house. And I just learned how to scale up. I take an institutional approach to it. So I believe the more you can spread your income, the more you can spread your risk across several single family houses, the better you position yourself. And at one point you can put the whole thing on autopilot, you know. So yeah, it was a little bit of a journey, but now I own over 40 rental properties, single family rental properties, and it allows me to live the life that I live now, and yeah, I enjoy it.
Nice. And so you've been down in Baja for about a month. Most of that time has been in Los Cabos,
Correct.
and you're just like me. We were talking about this earlier, man. I don't care if I'm in Japan or if I'm in a vacation in Nicaragua, dude. I will be looking at a property. How much is it worth? What is it renting for, etc. What are your thoughts on the market here? What have you noticed? You
Yeah.
know,
No, I love Cabo, and I was here last year. We looked at properties. We looked again this year. And to your point, I agree. I mean, if you have the taste, if you ever tasted real estate and you saw the opportunity, you just cannot turn it off. You know, it's just you're here automatically wherever you go. But I really actually had the purpose not only to live here for a month and enjoy the lifestyle, but also to look at real estate opportunities. And I personally believe the most appealing real estate market in the world is the United States. I grew up in Germany. I know the European real estate market. I've spent time in Asia, time spent in South America, and I just, in terms of leverage, in terms of growth and opportunity, US is by far my favorite. However, as I want to spread out and want to buy real estate outside the United States, my number one target market is Cabo. I just love the market. I see so much happening. A lot of the house we looked at, or any house we looked last year, they're all gone, they're all sold. You know, a lot of new developments. And back then, I don't know if you remember, we talked about it. Where I was like, man, they're building a lot of houses. I'm a little bit worried they're overbuilding here. You know, and I come here a year later, everything I saw, everything is sold. Prices went up, appreciate quite a bit over the last 12 months. And if you're buying something right now, a new development, it's out 12 to 18 months, you know. So you're not even, if you say, hey, I want to buy something new, a new house, you still have to wait 12 to 18 months. And I really like the Cabo market. I like the growth. I like the opportunity. I think it's a fantastic market.
yeah, I really think it's like I describe the market here as, while we are in Mexico, and that's a huge thing, right? I call it 50% United States, 50% Mexico, because at the end of the day, I guarantee you pretty much everything we're looking at right now is foreign buyers, if not wealthy Mexican nationals. And it's just that market where when you have that many people from the US and Canada creating that demand, the supply is basically going to mimic or mirror what those people are looking for.
Correct.
So, and a lot of people here are doing Airbnb route, condos, Airbnb, housing, Airbnb. We've been discussing a lot of things. What are your thoughts on Airbnb, and maybe how would you look at it from a contrarian standpoint, like opportunistic, things like that?
I mean, one thing is, and we talk about that a lot. I post about that on LinkedIn a lot. Is I'm a contrarian at heart. I'm not necessarily go where the masses go. The masses here in Cabo is buying new condos, buying new construction, oceanfront views, which is great, but it's just a very crowded market. We talk about depreciation, very strong, and a lot of people who buy is the focus of Airbnb. For me, the risk with Airbnb is that there's at one point an oversaturation. If everybody wants to do Airbnb, it's just at one point going to be too many. I personally not a big Airbnb fan to begin with, because I feel it's more of a job. I mean, yes, you have a property management company, but there's still a lot of interference. You have new people moving in every week. I know a lot of people have made a lot of money in Airbnb. I personally am just not a big fan of it. To do what I do, I prefer long-term rentals, and so I look at opportunities here in Cabo. And one thing I noticed is that there's a shortage in workforce housing. There's a lot of people. Since the focus is on these $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 condos, there's not much focus on the $100,000, $150,000 houses for Mexicans with a decent income, but also foreigners want to move here, just cannot afford the $300,000, $400,000 condos. So I think there's a huge opportunity here.
No, and that's something I noticed too. I helped a guy buy in, and look, this was like a couple months after helping somebody buy this like massive house in Palmilla that was gorgeous, but I was almost just as jealous as the guy that got this really good deal in San Jose, in an area that I know is going to gentrify in a good way, right? To make it a very safe area, not necessarily in an HOA. And I've seen stuff. I remember when I first got here, and I'm one of these people just like you, Marco, I'm driving around in neighborhoods trying to see what's out there that's not just what everybody's going after, right? And I remember this one time, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, it was a house on the Pacific side, and it was in pesos. That's, because the guy was listing it himself. At the exchange rate, it was like, $104,000, $105,000, and I guarantee you that house has doubled since then. I didn't have the means to really pull the trigger on that at that time. But there are things like that are out there right now, and I personally think just getting a little bit more creative with things like that is certainly going to be part of the future, because everybody's trying to do that. But at the end of the day, when you build up that type of market, you have to have the people that can support it, whether that's workforce housing or just more lower income. And like you said, not everybody wants to, or can afford being right here on the beach.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree, 100%. I mean, there's nothing wrong with buying. Would I buy a $400,000 or $500,000 condo with ocean view? Still would buy that. I think there's nothing. It's still a great investment, But where the better opportunity is what you just described, opportunity to generate probably asymmetric returns, being better returns than you would do with a condo at the $400,000 or $500,000 range. But either way, I feel like you almost can't. I mean, it's hard to say, and I hate to say things like this, but it's such a compelling argument for Cabo. If you see so much growth, you see so many people moving here, so many digital nomads working here for 2, 3 months, 4 months. So I feel it's a very strong, compelling case for here. And it also, the other part is the focus right now is on Cabo. There's still a lot of beautiful places all along the Baja. La Paz is 2 hours from here. Loreto is like 4 or 5 hours from here.
Yeah, about 5.5. Yeah, depending on where you're going.
Yeah. So this one opportunity is some more in the more affordable range housing here, but I also think the other opportunity is to buy houses where tourism is just picking up. La Paz
Exactly.
is still in early stages. Not many hotels.
People call Loreto Cabo like 20, 25 years ago, and it's a completely different market. But as far as like flight traffic down there, Cabo used to be, before they started doing a lot of the golf courses, my boss tells me it was just a bunch of drunk fishermen, and like they weren't able to afford where we're at right now, right?
Yeah.
So that market changed, but at the end of the day, so can these other ones. And I've got to know like Todos Santos, Pescadero very well, the East Cape.
Yeah.
I know Loreto just because we have some projects going on there. And La Paz is one that I'm starting to learn, and that's just much more of like, hey, driving around too. It's not like you jump on the MLS and you understand that market. So
Right.
knowing somebody that knows it, it's very, very interesting. Which is like the whole thing really here is a lifestyle play as well, which obviously that's not just a quantitative measure, but people being able to come down here and live for certain parts of the year.
Absolutely.
As far as the drawbacks, I know as U.S. investors leveraging in debt, as a foreigner here, it's not 100% here yet. It's going to be more expensive. I'd say less than 5% of the market is financing right now, which to me just goes to speak if it is a real market, more people would be using it. What are your thoughts? Is that the biggest drawback to investing here, is the fact that you cannot leverage?
Yes. For me personally, I mean, this is how I built my portfolio, was leverage, and I think that's why I like the U.S. real estate market. I think how easy it is to have leverage, to get financing in the U.S. makes it superior to any other real estate market in the world probably. And so a lot of it is cash, so you have to be willing to put $300,000 in cash, or if it's new construction, you put a third down, let's say 100,000, and then at completion 12-18 months later is another 200,000. So it's a substantial amount of cash that's involved. However, if you make if you can generate the returns with it, I feel it's still a great opportunity in terms of appreciation, in terms of returns. I mean, we talked about Airbnb, but there's a lot of people looking for 3 to 6 months midterm renting, long-term, a year whatsoever. There's a market for that as well. So I think you still can generate the returns, and one of the things why I think it's such a compelling case, Cabo, is also you mentioned the airport earlier, is the airport, how easy it is to get here. I mean, this time I drove, which was a great drive along the Baja, enjoyed it, but Houston is less than 2 hours from here, and it's very easy. Too many. Denver's a direct flight, California direct flights, so it's very easy to come here, and even if you decide as a lifestyle, hey, I want to live in Cabo for 3 or 4 months, I mean, it's very easy to get here. So it's another reason why I think Cabo has a very compelling
Your two major markets are California and Texas, but flight traffic here, basically since the pandemic, has been increasing at a 9% clip each year, which is like Cancun's a huge airport, but we're actually growing faster. And I know for a fact they're actually in discussions for a second runway and already expanding. They just completed another expansion in 2019. They're already expanding it. That's a huge thing. It's just going to bring down more and more people. And whether people like that or not, that Cabo is growing, at the end of the day, I know as buying real estate here, that's only going to help out as more and more people come down here, that the demand is just going up. So I know that's going to happen.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And you mentioned Cancun and other places. I mean, I have been to all the major vacation destinations in Mexico, and I love Cancun, I love Tulum, I like Puerto Vallarta. However, my favorite is here, Cabo. It's just, I mean, right now the camera, we just see the ocean, but on the other side we see the mountains, we see the desert. It's just phenomenal scenery. And the other part I like a lot is safety. We haven't talked much about safety, but I mean, it's a big topic, obviously, with drug cartels and violence and whatsoever. It's all over the news regarding Mexico. And some of the vacations would actually had some violence. Here in Cabo, I feel extremely safe.
It's a lot safer than some of.
Yeah, I mean, just driving down here, I saw so many U.S. license plates just driving down the Baja. RVs, cars. There were some military checkpoints, there were some police checkpoints, but nothing. I mean, it actually made me feel more safe.
Yeah.
And down here, you don't hear anything about shootings or any other violence or whatsoever.
I've found out that most people that ask about safety in Cabo have not actually been here.
I can see that, yes.
Because they'll ask me about it, and I'm just like, man, have you been to Cabo? And
yeah,
they couldn't even like point it out on a map.
Yeah.
It's like throwing in Detroit and Chicago with Minnesota or something. It's a completely different animal.
Absolutely, yeah.
To shift a little bit, I want to get your thoughts. You were talking about how you've actually recently purchased some places in the States.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts? We're here in mid-March 2023. What are your thoughts on the housing market right now? You had a lot of these. Well, I know your response to this one because we're of the same mind here, but we had a lot of these doomsdayers, last year when they started raising interest rates about market's going to crash, recession fears, all this stuff. But it doesn't really seem to have been that way. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on the housing market right now?
Yeah, I'm still a buyer. I drove down here from Florida. I was on the road for 2 weeks, but along the way I bought 4 houses in Mississippi, closed on those. I was able to rent actually 2 of them while I'm in Cabo, so a lot of my business can be done remotely. And in general, I go to battle with those doomsayers for the last 2-3 years on LinkedIn, and it's like a lot of people that they don't base these things on data. They just think it's logic. Okay, so housing prices went up extremely high for the last 2-3 years. Interest rates go up. A lot of Americans buy based on payments. So now, since the interest rate doubled, housing has to collapse. And it's just they're just not looking at the actual data. And the data says there's still a shortage in supply, especially in the high growth areas. And that's the other thing about real estate. Real estate is local. So yes, there might be issues in some areas in California, West Coast or East Coast. But the Southeast, where I invest, sees still a lot of growth, and there's still a shortage in housing. And if I look, for instance, on the houses listed in the U.S. right now, it's 420,000 homes are listed as of right now for sale in a country with 330 million people. We're at a historic low when it comes to supply. So I believe in markets. So if the supply is low, and even if demand goes down some, there's still demand there. People still move. People still want to upgrade. So there's still an imbalance of supply and demand. As long as that imbalance is there, I don't see how housing prices can crash, especially in areas with high growth, high job growth. So I feel very confident still to buy. Do I go all in right now? No. There's still a chance that things can deteriorate or get worse. So I still hold a cash position. However, I'm very selective. So if I find a cash flowing opportunity that cash flows today and I can generate great returns at 7.5% in interest, I still buy today. So one of the things, even if house prices drop 10%, I'm going to be okay because I cash flow. And if things change and interest rates go down, I'm just going to refinance in 2 or 3 years from now.
That's an interesting dynamic too that you brought up. I just thought of is, like, let's say for the past 2 years you've been calling a market top or whatever, and then let's just say the market keeps going up. Well, first of all, you're gonna psychologically probably keep trying to justify your position to see the market going up. Meanwhile, somebody like yourself that has kept buying is not in a place of FOMO, and then when the market gets to a point where it could actually be there, that person capitulates and buys at a market top. It's just it's a psychological thing. Whereas if you're like yourself and you're just kind of slowly adding properties that make sense as opposed to like fear-based or like I've got to put this cash to work right now. I think those are the people that make the mistakes.
There's a lot of people. One thing is, a lot of these experts I learned is they don't even have skin in the game. There's a lot of people out there that have an opinion on real estate but don't really own any real estate, don't buy any real estate, but have a strong opinion on it. So I actually stopped listening to anybody who has no skin in the game or doesn't look at the data. A lot of these doomsayers, and this is the thing, is fear sells. It sounds much better, like, oh, the market is crashing, run for the hills and whatsoever. That sounds much better. It gets more clicks than like somebody says, hey, don't worry, everything's okay. And there's definitely one is that these people don't have skin in the game. The other thing is there's potential for FOMO as market changes. You know, I mean, when I started in 2016, I remember a real estate investor, pretty heavy real estate investor, and I just started. He's telling me he sold everything he had. He sold everything, and he was, I mean, I don't know how many. It was a substantial amount of houses, because he thought a crash is coming for sure. Houses went up so much from 2009 to 2016. For sure, there's a crash coming. Well, I mean, if you look at the 7 years since, I mean, he missed out on a lot of gain since 2016. Even COVID, early 2020, people was out, market is crashing. I kept buying at the time. You know, I looked at looking at data. I looked at the Federal Reserve. I looked what interests are doing, and I felt like there's going to be a jump in hard assets, and which turned out to be correct. And so I feel still pretty good about the market. Again, would I go all in right now? Probably not. But if there's an opportunity, I'm not going to shy away.
Nice. Well, Marco, man, thank you for your time.
Hey, I enjoyed it, Fletcher.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you get back to your yacht over there.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I think the helipad's over there.
Swim some laps.
All right, Marco.
All right, thanks.